This is Contemporary Chinese, Revised Edition, Volume 2, and it's Lesson 7, and this is Words and Expressions Part 1. So we start off with oneself, 自我, 自我. That is in our lesson combined together with the next one, which is 介绍. 介绍, to introduce something or someone, or to do an introduction, make an introduction. So 介绍 is both a verb and a noun. So if we could say, for example, if we want to introduce ourselves, you could say as a verb, 我介绍一下自己. So I will introduce myself. Or you can say 我自我介绍一下. I'll again introduce myself, but that's using the 自我. Or you can use it as a noun and say 我做一下自我介绍. And also you can talk about when they talk about introducing something. In Chinese, you'll often read or hear people say 我介绍一下北京. And if you think about it, you can't really introduce Beijing to other people in the sense of people getting to know people. But what they really mean here is, with this 介绍, is to give an introduction about, or to talk about, to give information about Beijing. So 介绍 also has that meaning as well. Moving on to our next one, which is major or speciality, and in Chinese that is 专业. 专业. So when you're talking about for example, a university situation, you might talk about what major you're doing at university. So people might ask you, for example, the question, 你是什么专业? Or they might ask, 你学什么专业? Okay, and then you could reply with something like, 我是中文专业. 我是中文专业. So my major is Chinese. The word 专业 can also refer to when, say, for example, a particular topic is very specialized, or vocabulary is very specialized, so that you can say, for example, that topic 很专业. It's very specialized. That's another way it can be used. Moving on to our next word here. This English is misleading. So let's look at the Chinese first, and then I'll explain why. So we've got the term here, 年级. 年级. In actual fact, what it means is year level. Year level. Grade, I guess if you're talking about primary school, what grade were you in at primary school? So it can mean grade in that sense, but really what they mean is year level. And if you look at the actual Chinese itself, we already know 年, we know that means year. And 级, this 级, it's different from one that we learned just recently where we talk about, 好极了, where we say extremely good. That's a different 级. That's pronounced the same, but it's written differently. This 级 means literally level, in the sense of one's level of skill, one's rank, say for example within a hierarchy and so on. So the Chinese word 年级 is very close to the English expression year level. Moving on to our next word, mother tongue. Okay, in Chinese it's basically the same as English. 母语. 母语. And we've learned the word 母 before, in 母亲 for mother. So, for example, you can say 我的母语是英文，我的母语不是中文。Okay, so that's 母语. And then we move on to another variation, which is 外语. 外语 meaning foreign language. And we've come across the character 外 before. I think we've may have already done, for example, 外国人 to mean a foreigner from another country. Also, Chinese have an expression 外人 meaning somebody that's not part of the family or not really part of the group. It refers more to family, but it can also refer to a group. So somebody who is an outsider. But also it comes from the expression 外面, which means outside, literally outside a building or something. Now we've learned the expression for inside before, which was 里面. So now we've got 外面, meaning outside, and 里面. So the 外 suggests an outsider. And here is the expression 外国, foreign country. And as I had up here, oops, there it is there, sorry. If we want to talk about a foreign country person or a foreigner, 外国人. Okay, moving on to our next one. We have 普通话. Okay, 普通话, Mandarin. So we've previously learned that we can say Mandarin in a couple of different ways. We can say 汉语 and we can say 中文. 普通话 is more of a modern term in one sense because what it literally means is this bit here, 普通 means common, as in common to everyone, common everywhere. 话 is the word for language, or another word for language. So 普通话 is the common language spoken by everyone. And I say it's a more modern term because I could be wrong, but I think it's a term that was brought in the 20th century, possibly even after the communists became the ruling party within China. So it's the language that unites everyone. Okay, moving on to our next one, our listening ability. And we actually just recently did an activity that involved this. So the word in Chinese is 听力. 听力. Now, 听 we've learned before. We know it means to listen. 力 is, well, as it says in English, an ability. And so we'll see that character 力 in a number of other different words. But what we just did recently, let me see if I can, here we go. So we have 听力考试, which is listening comprehension exam or test. 听力考试. So 考试 is the word for an exam or a test. And we just did one recently. And to match that, we also have the term, sorry, looking at different screens here, 口语. 口语, spoken language. So we could say 口语考试 for an oral exam. So again, we're focusing on the various different linguistic words for the various different linguistic skills here. So the next one that we've got is 阅读. 阅读 meaning reading. Now we know we've learned a verb for to read before, which was 看. 看. And this can be used in a similar way. As you can see here, it can be used as a noun or as a verb. So we can say 看书. We could also say 阅读书. That would be in spoken Chinese a little bit over the top in the sense that 阅读 is a bit more formal than just 看. But anyhow, both the characters 阅 and 读, both the characters, so despite the fact that this whole word can be used as either a noun or a verb, the two characters here, 阅 and 读, are both verbs. So where in some circumstances we split the the noun, sorry, we split the verb into a verb and noun. With this particular verb, 阅读, we don't split it because both characters are verbs. But the whole expression can be used either as a noun or as a verb. So, for example, somebody might ask you the question, 你的中文阅读怎么样？你的中文阅读怎么样？ Oops. 怎么样? So how is your Chinese reading? That's where we use it as a noun. And then somebody might say to you, 哦，请你阅读一下这本中文书。阅读中文书, so to read a Chinese book. Moving along, we have also a related expression to write. And I think we've learned the first character before, 写. Certainly in the Chinese Island lesson in the medical clinic, you are asked to 填写, the form. That was 填写, which means to fill in a form by writing. So you can see that there's the 写, and the 填 means to fill something in, and it can also be used to say fill in a hole in the ground, 填. But here we're looking at 写作. 写作. So again, can be either, the whole expression can be used either as a noun or a verb. And both characters are both verbs. So this is one verb where the characters are not ever split. And as we say here, it means writing. So it's 写作 is more than just the physical act of writing the characters. It's actually writing some kind of content. So writing a story, writing a poem, whatever. That's 写作. Okay, moving on. We now have standard or criterion, and it's used in an interesting way in Chinese. So it can be used as an adjective or as a noun. And in Chinese, it's 标准. 标准. Most people don't have trouble with the pronunciation of the first part. It's the second character that they have some issues with, and that is pronounced as 准. 准. 标准. So, looking at it as an adjective, you will often hear Chinese people say, particularly to non-native speakers, 你的普通话很标准. Let me type that out for you. And I think that's actually, there's an example of that in our dialogue. 你的普通话很标准. So first time I heard that, I think I've mentioned this in lecture before, but I was a little upset because basically what it seemed to me they were saying is, oh, your Mandarin is very standard. And as an inexperienced foreigner at the time, learner of the language at the time, I thought, oh my God, I've made so much effort and all they can say is that it's standard. It's like, it's not very good. That's not what they mean at all. What they mean is that your pronunciation, your four tones, and to some degree the way you use the language, the way you word things, is very standard. And the reason why that's so important in relation to Mandarin, and particularly for mainland Chinese, is because there are so many different dialects in China, in different regions, that for probably the majority of mainland Chinese people, 普通话 is not their native language. Their dialect is their native language. 普通话 is something that they learn from very young, but it's something that they learn in addition to their dialect. And so what you'll find is, I guess it depends on the level of education, but certainly, amongst, say, for example, older people, sometimes their pronunciation of Mandarin is not that standard. And sometimes for us as, foreign learners of the language, when we hear some people speak, it's kind of difficult to understand what they're saying. For younger people these days, say in the last sort of 10 years or so, they should speak very standard Mandarin because it's taught that way in their schools. But sometimes as they get older, they lose that very standard pronunciation and it becomes they're impacted by their local dialect. So that's what they mean by standard. So we can actually sometimes achieve a level of standardness that even some native speakers can't achieve because we really focus on, trying to speak in a standard way. But also you can say, you can use 标准 to express a particular standard in relation to something else. So if we're talking about, I don't know, the standard of education, for example, you could use the word 标准. In that case, then, it's going to be a noun. Right, moving on. Where are we up to now? We're up to clear, which is an adjective, and that is pronounced 清楚. 清楚. So 清 itself means clear, and 楚 means clear as well. So the two things reinforce each other. So for example, if we wanted to say, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you clearly, and I think this actually comes up in the dialogue, I'm pretty sure. You could say, for example, 对不起，我听得不清楚. So I'm sorry, I can't hear clearly. It might be something that somebody's saying. Or you might say 我没听清楚. I didn't hear clearly. So where we use 没, it's I didn't hear clearly. Where we use 听得不清楚, which we've learned the verb plus the before, 听得不清楚, it means that I can't hear clearly. 清楚. And it can be used in reference to the way somebody speaks, but it could be, for example, when somebody explains something, or even 介绍. So that the word, can't see my hands on the screen, the word that we have above 介绍, if they're giving an introduction to a briefing about information about a particular situation, you might say, 他介绍的非常清楚. So he provided information about this particular person, place, or thing very clearly. 清楚. Moving along, we also have a new word, 练习. 练习. Okay, and it means, again, like a lot of these words, it can be both verb and noun. It means to practice, or to exercise, or an exercise. So just to be clear on this, to exercise, it doesn't mean literally, doesn't necessarily mean physical exercise, okay? This 练习普通话, 练习汉语. 我想练习汉语. It means practice in that sense. Or we probably wouldn't call it exercise in English, we call it practice. And you can also use it as a noun, and you could say, for example, 做汉语, let that catch up, 练习, to do Chinese language practice. 做汉语练习. So there, 练习 is used as a noun, and 做 in this case is our verb. Next one, 谈话. 谈话. Okay, here's that character 话 again. We saw that just a bit earlier. Sorry about my arrows. We saw that a bit earlier for 普通话. 普通话. Let me just get rid of that. That looks terrible. Oops, it's not that easy either. Okay, you know what? I'm just going to leave that. So we saw a bit earlier 普通话. So 话 means language. Now 谈话. To call it talk, I guess it's okay. We've learned a word 说 to speak. You can also say, for example, to extend the word 说话, meaning to talk or to speak. For me, 谈话, it's a bit more like having a chat with someone than just speaking to them. So you can say, for example, 我和你谈谈. I have a chat with you, or 我和你谈话. I have a chat with you or talk to you. So to me, 谈话 is a bit more like chatting, and 说话 is a bit more like talking. But basically, it can be used the same way, and they're a similar meaning. This next one is an adverb, 互相meaning each other. So, for example, if we wanted to say to learn from each other, okay, a nice ideal, to learn from each other, we can say 互相学习, 互相学习, which means to learn from each other. So you notice here that the 互相 comes before the verb 学习. Another one which I think we should be able to do is I think we've learned the word for to help. So you can say 互相帮助. Just in case you haven't seen the two-character version of to help, it's 帮助. So 互相帮助 means to help each other. So that word 互相, that adverb 互相 is a really handy one to know. And then finally we've got 年, which I think we already know, and we certainly had in up here in 年级. So it's a measure word. If we say, 一年, 两年, 三年. Now, interesting thing about this is like some other words that we know where they are both a noun and a measure word. So for example, if we say one day, that is 一天, and you notice that there's no additional measure word. It's not 一个天, it's 一天. Whereas if we said something like 1 month, 一个月. So this one, if we're talking about years, then it's going to be, 一年, 两年, and so on. So 年 is both a noun and a measure word.